I really don't think we take a relationship addiction seriously enough. And I want to talk about this woman in this show, White Lotus, because she reminds me of women who define themselves in relation to men, usually awful men, so that they can feel good about themselves. I have been this person, okay? So I speak from experience. She is not his soulmate, okay? He is not her soulmate. These are two sick people. One is unbelievably selfish and self-destructive. The other one is unbelievably codependent and self-destructive. And they are like magnets, man. They are like yin yang. They need each other. They both get so much from this relationship, and this is not love. And if you have a tendency to feel like bad for her, I just want to show you that she is getting something from this, okay? Her ego is getting a lot from this relationship. She gets to feel morally superior and like a good person because she needs him to be a bad person. So I want to get into how much a lot of times women are conditioned to do this, right? And I do think it's actually a survival mechanism of patriarchy is, because remember, grandma's generation and beyond were didn't really have a choice, like they kind of had to be married, right? Because they couldn't really own businesses, couldn't really own anything except white women in the South. They could own property. Read They Were Her Property if you don't know what I'm talking about, which is one reason why Southern white women held everyone back, because they could own people and only people, okay? But please educate yourself on that if you know what I'm talking about. But in general, in the United States, I'm going to speak about the United States, although this is not just the United States, not having a choice whether or not you want to be attached. Because even if you don't get married, you are somehow attached to a man, whether it's your brother, your dad, or something, right? And in fact, the only women who really had independence were schmegs workers, okay? So we owe a lot to schmegs workers because they actually were able to actually have money from the schmegs work they were doing, where all the other women were doing schmegs work but just not getting paid for it really and doing it in more respectable ways. But on some level, all women have been treated like schmegs workers, which is another reason why I get on board with feminism, and don't be a swerf. But I do think this is like a trauma response to, or like a survival mechanism for having to be with men who hated you, who beat you, who impregnated you, who SA'd you regularly, right? Because you can't say no if you can't leave. You can't really say no if someone has a lot of power over you, right? Like that, you can't consent when someone has financial power, physical power, and just systemic power over you in that way. You're just kind of have to like go along with it and try to make it work. And so I think a lot of women's codependency that we still need to work on, and for lack of a better word, I don't even know if that's the right word to use, because I know some people are like think that word itself is right. But either way, the way that we have found a way to survive in patriarchy through all these different ways, but they really hold us back. And the love story between this old man who seems to really not be, he can't stand his girlfriend, okay? The way he talks to her, the way he talks about her, the way he treats her, she is just like a nuisance to him. And yet he's really dependent on her because she's also like, even though she's way younger, she is how he emotionally regulates. She does all the emotional labor for him. She makes him feel important. She gives him a lot of social capital for him having a pretty young woman. And, he has a woman who is going to mother him, parent him, because he clearly is not doing too good taking care of himself. He could take care of himself, he just doesn't want to. So she gets to do that. And in exchange, she is financially taken care of. Now, she may resist people saying that she's with him for money. But if he was broke, she'd probably still be doing it. But probably, it's much easier for her to do this with a man who at least financially takes care of her. But that's not it. And I want to say this is somebody who fell for a hobo schedule, who had no money. When I looked back and wondered, what did I get from that relationship? Why on earth, besides being completely gaslit all the time, despite all former trauma setting me up for that dynamic, besides like all the things that kind of set me up to like not think that was bad, really bad, until I was in too deep. And then I was like, oh my God, this is bad. There was something other than, all the things, right? all of the manipulation and all the love bombing. One of the things that kept me in that relationship, which is honestly, when I look back, one of the things that I also saw a pattern with my dad and other like men who were not so great to me, is that at the very end of the day, and especially with like addicts, right? Any like alcoholics, just any men who are like bad boys or broken. There was two things that I got from that one relationship. One, I got to feel needed and important. And two, I got to feel morally superior, right? And I know that, like, I'm not saying that's for everybody, but I'm saying if I didn't get something from it, whether for my ego or just something, I would have left long ago, right? But me worrying about him all the time, like he was literally my child, is the main thing that kept me there. But having someone who I could see was so broken, and his moral, like the longer I was with him, the more I was like, oh my God, your moral compass is so off. I got to take the high road, and it's easier to feel like you are a really good person when you are with someone who is pretty awful. You know, I'm not saying this to be in a victim blamey kind of way. I'm just saying that I had to understand what I was getting from this relationship for me to not repeat that pattern. Because just seeing myself as a victim of this and just like a target, and this could happen, you know, like that this is just always going to happen to me, and like that was really not very empowering. I needed to know what I need to work on, what I need to like be aware of. Why was I with this person? And again, so many things that were really beyond my control. I didn't understand narcissism. I didn't understand hobos. I didn't understand all these things. I had lack of experience and lack of education. But at the end of the day, the things that kept me there was worrying about this man like he was my child, and really honestly worrying more about him and his safety and his well-being more than I valued my own life. And that was a very hard realization. But the other thing that gave my ego a little kick, besides feeling needed and important to someone, was feeling, you know, at least I'm you know, better than him. And Chelsea, or whatever, is that her name? She lives for that. And I'm going to show you how much she defines herself by being a healer, right? She's hope, and her boyfriend is pain. So I'm going to show you a thread that I saw, and then I want to show some examples. I couldn't quite put my finger on how to put it into words, which is why I love it when someone finds words for things. But this person says, it's hard to watch Chelsea on White Lotus say, I am hope and Rick is pain, and eventually one of us will win. Girly Pop, his darkness is just the lens, for you are trying to see your own goodness. Like how we think we are seeing the moon when we look up at the sky, but it's just a reflection of the sun's light. Your goodness can be visible to you without seeing it through the eyes of a broken man. This was some of the hardest work for me to do on myself, right? Was to not define myself through the lens of a broken man. So if you have a lot of issues with a father who was an alcoholic or an abuser or something else, like, and it doesn't have to be a father, by the way, but just for instance, but a parent especially, if your whole identity is so tied to them, so enmeshed in them, and your formative years were really basically about him and like him being broken and you having to survive that and figure out who you are with this sun, you know, that you're orbiting around, it is really hard to have an identity that is not tied to the reflection of someone else. Now, because I didn't date pretty much at all, with the exception of a few men, luckily I did not fall into this trap that Chelsea did, where she just, you know, she probably dates and dates and dates. This woman is probably never single. Thank God. I just saw early on when I tried to date, like, oh my God, I don't like who I became, and I just didn't date at all. I spent like all my 20s and my 30s trying to figure out who I was, not in relation to a man. And then the first time I really dated a man was that hobo, and boy, did all the stuff that I really needed to work on came out with that man, because he was so broken. And it fed and it triggered all of these things that I'd experienced as a child, of getting trapped in this dynamic of he's broken, so I can't be. He's the child, I'm the parent. He's this, I'm that. And this is a really, really tragic way to live because you get completely lost. You don't even know who you are when you are in relationships like this. You are not healing anybody. You are making yourself sick. You are actually harming that person you think you're helping. It is toxic as hell for everybody. So let me show you some examples now. So what I find really interesting is that when I've seen interviews of these two, and I'm just confused because they talk as if they actually think their characters are in love. And I could see why she thinks hers is, but he hates her. I'm so confused by this actor thinking that they love each other and are soulmates. They are literally just dependent on each other, okay? That's it. And she's like, yeah, people are going to doubt Chelsea's motive. Why is she with this guy? And they showed things like clips of her being like, why are you so shut down? And the way that this man, he calls her an idiot. I think the very first episode, like one of the first scenes that you see, the talking scenes between them, he said something like, God, do you ever stop talking? Like all he does is neg her. That to me is a terrible red flag. Like negging is one of the biggest red flags. That means that man hates you. And if he doesn't hate you, he hates himself so much and is so insecure he has to bring you down. And that is never going to end well for women in patriarchy. So when this actor was talking about it, he's like, this is the first their love story. I'm like, what? This is not love. Whatever. Why are y'all calling this love? These are two people that connect on a soul level. What are y'all talking about? They are not collected on, this is two people who's past trying to work out any former trauma or some sort of issues or, maybe his male entitlement under patriarchy too, or whatever it is, but this is not a soul connection. Even when in this scene where she says, I'm your soulmate, right? This was his response. How can I be your soulmate? Our signs aren't even compatible. All he does is tell her, like, you're dumb, like what? Like he never reassures her in any way possible. And she's constantly having to call in and check on him, make sure she almost died because of this dude. She got bit by a snake, a poisonous snake, because this man is so awful to her. So how these actors are talking about this story as if it's a love story, or how I find it very disturbing that anybody sees this, anybody at all, as a cute couple or like a couple meant to be together. This is an old man who preyed on a younger woman who doesn't know any better and has still had to undo her own patriarchy and whatever issues she's got with her dad, maybe her mom, whatever. But her codependency stuff and her whole identity being defined by healing men, that is literally why patriarchy keeps going, okay? That's why I can't fix men. I'm not interested. They don't want it anyway. They have to fix themselves. Unless y'all want to pay me. Venmo me and I'll help you maybe. But I'm here to help women deconstruct this nonsense, right? To help us deal with our whatever is going on, whatever it is that's pushing us to try to save these men from themselves when they don't want saving. Disney told us we're going to have some prince come and save us when we are the prince. Okay? We are the love of our life. These men usually are parasites and make our lives worse. And yet, we keep doing this. Every awful man is somehow attached to a woman who is enabling him. And the more of us that can stop giving our labor, our money, our love, our time, our energy, and pouring that into ourselves and our community and people who reciprocate that, the more we can take that route and leave these men to go their own way and figure it out and learn by necessity how to save themselves from themselves instead of this learned helplessness, entitled king baby crap. The sooner we can all do that. We can't change men, but we can make it so that they have no choice but die or change. Okay? That's what I'm here for. So this is for women who follow me who really struggle with playing this role. And I say it as somebody who did this, okay? And I have to work all the time to make sure I'm not doing that. It's very hard to unlearn this. We are harming ourselves. We are harming these people who we claim to love. And we are harming all women when we do this. And she's just like, yeah, her belief is that this is an absolute love story. Yeah, her delusion is that. Just because she believes it and acts on it doesn't mean it's true. This is not love. And this, again, I can relate to because I thought the first time I fell in love, he tried to unalive me. And it wasn't until much later that I realized that I didn't love that man. I felt bonded to him. I was addicted to him. When I finally left him, I was like a meth addict who was like, oh, I needed my fix. I still kept texting him. I literally ran away from the state of New Mexico to get away from this man, but he was in me. My hormones were all off. My cortisol level, not only was like my codependency so bad, but my physical body was addicted to this man until I finally had enough time and space to regulate my nervous system and get this man out of my system, which is why, please do not send that text. You have to start all over once you contact that man. Please do not send that text. Do not answer that text. Do not answer that phone call. Do not unblock them. Blocking them alone is not going to keep you from reaching out. It helps. But the way that she's talking about how she thinks people are going to doubt her motives, like, why is she with this guy? Yeah, we're all asking. She is way out of his league. And she's just like, yeah, but it's love. It's surprising. The real reason why she's with him is actually she's telling the truth. Like, there isn't a sneaky ulterior motive. She's just romantic. And she's like, yeah, I'm romantic. This is all about ego. I really want women to understand that a lot of our problems come down to our ego. We really don't know what to do. Not ego like, oh, we're ego. What I mean is a lot of our trauma, a lot of our issues, a lot of our insecurity, our identity are tied to what the patriarchy told us to value most, which is romantic relationships especially, and also validation of men. And I think even if you don't date men, this can still come out through your relationship with your dad, your brother, or whatever. We are all on the pick-me spectrum. All right, we've all been conditioned under this system to center men and hold their opinion very highly and tie ourselves to them somehow. And she does not love that man. She thinks she loves that man. You cannot love someone who you are not equal to unless they're literally your child, but he's not her child. That's why I'm telling you, in relationships, this is where you have to deconstruct these patriarchy in your relationships, because you cannot love someone who is exploiting you. You can have a survival approach to it, but if you are literally being abused by someone, and you are being exploited by someone, and they know they're exploiting you and they do it anyway, you cannot love someone that you're exploiting, right? If there's someone doesn't have a choice in it because you are eyeball to eyeball, that is not love. That is something else. That is power system. That is trauma response. That is codependency. That is, I don't even like attachment style theory a lot of times, because a lot of it is literally just men's entitlements that has been redefined for us to try to figure them out. And it's literally their entitlement and selfishness under patriarchy, because that is how they are conditioned. And then ours is this like serving people, and being like, and not even knowing who we are, right? We are really taught to be super sick in terms of not even knowing who we are, what we want, whatever, because it's all about them, right? In this sick and twisted dance. So I am sorry, that man needs her to take care of him and treat him like a baby and make him feel good because some hot woman likes him. And she needs him for financial security, for a sense of purpose, to feel needed, to feel wanted, and to feel morally superior. That is not a foundation of love. That's not. Now, before I go further into Chelsea, I want to point out that this is what most of the people on this on this show's problem is identity crisis, ego, hierarchy, and what's her butt? Piper's character, the southern rich white woman, her entire identity is in opposition to like schmeg's worker, right? She considered, and people who are not rich. People who are not rich and white like her are beneath her. And even ones who are rich, she doesn't think that they are inferior to her, because her whole identity is opposition to people who are not decent. I think that's the word she uses constantly. And so she prays for them. She even thinks Rick and Chelsea, who clearly have money, they would not be staying here. Those are those boat people, right? And so again, this is what a lot of people in general, and this show is exploring how a lot of our identity is based on who we're not, rather than who we are. When we compare ourselves to people, we get real sick, which is what's happening with these three. She sees herself as like the queen bee and needs the others to play their roles for her to be in that position. She's the goody two-shoe. They're all pick-me, but she's pretty far on the pick-me spectrum. And so she pretends to be happy and being like perfect, has the perfect husband and money, but she's Republican and she literally votes for Trump. She needs Lori to be a loser for her to feel good. So a lot of people like this will have someone around them who they see as a loser. They need them to always lose in order for her to feel like a winner. And then Lori gets to be the victim because she's the truth teller. she's the outcast, and as much as that she feels awful about that, she also gets to be the good one, right? You're fake and fronting like you're perfect. You're vain and selfish, but she doesn't go as far to say as I'm blah, 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 right? But in this scene right here, she gets to be the good one. She gets to be morally superior because at least she's not like them. I think that she is like more likable and like more level-headed and probably just whatever is like by comparison to the other two, I like her more. But she has her own ego trip here, right? I can go into these three if y'all want. Please let me know if you made it this far. And if you want me to go into the blonde Bob, just type blonde Bob, please. Saxon too. Like his little brother has completely lost. They're all lost, but the little brother is completely lost and it has no identity and is so easily influenced because he doesn't know who he is. But this guy is also that way. He's always going to be seen to everybody as Timothy Ratcliffe's son. So that's why he's so invested in him not looking bad, because then he looks bad and he has no other identity. So they really play with this in this show. It's not just what's her face, Chelsea. But let's just show another example of Chelsea. Even though she says so many times, I'm not judging, she absolutely judges. Because her judgment of people, men especially, who are not making the decision, like who are being bad, is what gives her life. Because she's so empathetic. That's why, like, I really don't even like the term empath. Not that I don't believe that exists, but a lot of times people call themselves empaths when they're really just codependent. If you call yourself that, that's fine. This is not an attack on you. I have just met people who are like, I'm an empath. And really, it's like, no, you don't know who you are because you have a thermometer up the butt of everyone around you all the time that you never are in your own body, in your own mind. Everything, because, you know, I have been in that level of codependency before where I was just, I was lost because I'm so running around the heads of everyone else, so like worried about what everyone else is doing all the time that I didn't even ask myself, who am I? What am I doing? Luckily, like my husband knows me so well. He can tell when I'm spinning out and he'll be like, babe, okay, stop. What do you want? What do you need? How do you feel? Forget about me or forget about whoever it is that he knows I'm spinning out of. Pause. Get in here. And I'm so glad I have that reminder because even though I'm better at it now, it still is like not my default to pause and really like connect with myself. Okay. So it is a really hard way to live, to have the weight of the world on your shoulders, but it also kind of gives you an ego high, right? When it's almost like a God complex. I mean, it is. Well, I know what everyone needs. I know what's best for everybody. As if I'm like, my life's out of control, but at least I know what this little hobo needs. So when he's all like, you know, these guys, the only reason they're with these women is because they're loaded, you know, and then they show all of the LBHs, the losers back home. And, you know, this is really something really bad in Thailand. Not just Thailand, but there are so many rich, white, ugly old men in Thailand who are passport bros, who are basically just colonizers, who are and some of them are literally with teenagers. Okay, it's disgusting. And they're using their money to, God, whatever. I have so much to say on that. Let me know if you want me to talk about that more. And then she's like, that's going to be you in 30 years. And I love that she's a truth teller, but she never tells the truth about herself. Everything about her is reading other people. And she's not wrong. That is going to be him in 30 years. That's why we love her, is because she's the truth teller. But she is completely delusional about herself. And that's what's so annoying. Because he's just like, God, why are you so mean to me? And he kind of likes that she's so mean. And again, she likes it because he's the broken one. And she gets to be the enlightened person, the good girl, the holier than thou. She gets to feel good about herself because he could learn something from her. Oh, I'm not trying to be mean, but that's just what you give off. Well, you give off codependent, judgmental, and morally superior. But because you're fun and funny and like the truth teller, it's easy to just dismiss it and not see that this is actually pretty toxic. And he's like, well, and you're dating some old dude with a bunch of money. How's that different? And I love that he called her out for that. It's not the same. And again, she thinks she's different than those other women. Now, I'm not saying that she doesn't think she loves Rick, but she seems to think that all those other women are just in it for the money, and she's not. It's because she is like, you know, he needs her. She loves him. Look at her. Listen to how she talks about him. That's not the reason I'm with him. Then what's the appeal? Because that is what everyone wants to know. The first day we met, he told me his whole life story. Wow. Amazing. That's it. That's all he did. You know how many men have told me their whole life story on a freaking Tinder hookup? Right? Men tell women their whole life story all the time because men don't talk to each other. And we become their free therapist. He's like, oh my God, he's my soulmate because he opened up to me. He's, big bear, with a wall to everyone else, but I'm special because he opens up to me. Do not fall for this, y'all. You are not special. He would tell, these men actually go to schmegs workers, because I've interviewed lots of schmegs workers for my own articles. These men go to schmegs workers. So if they're not going to tell you, they're going to talk to schmegs workers. They're not going to go to a therapist. They're not going to actually deal with this stuff. They will just be like, oh my God. And they tell you the craziest thing to complete strangers. I already did a video on how men will turn even a hookup into a therapist. Go see that in my, from like last week. And I just knew that we were meant to be together. Honey, you are so sick. You're young. I forget how old she is, but she's young. Whatever. Who hasn't been this way? Well, hopefully not everybody, but. And he was just like, whenever she goes, see, you can't even go there. He has this sadness. This is so telling. This is honestly like one of the most important scenes in the whole series to understand how a lot of women end up with really sick, twisted, awful men. Sometimes end up unaliving them, but just ruin their lives anyway. It really touches me. If you are dating somebody because you feel sorry for them, you are in a dangerous relationship. I really want you to ask yourself this, because that is one of the things that was so frightening that I realized is I felt sorry for him. I kind of pitied him because I wanted to help him. And men know this, and they use this to reel you in so that you will stay with them through anything, and they will take everything from you. This is literally what Brian did to Gabby Petito. I already covered it. You can go and look at those. I did a deep dive on that. This is what my ex did. This is what men do all the time. Share their sad, whatever. They weaponize vulnerability to lure you in so that you will be their mother, their therapist, and their caretaker and never leave them, even though they literally hate you. I want to heal him. You cannot heal men. You can't. It's an inside job. It's like when this yin-yang battle. That is a very interesting word, battle. I'm Hope, the good one, right? And Rick is pain. And eventually one of us will win. She doesn't want him to win. She doesn't want him to change. If he changed, she would probably, because she's so sick, become disinterested. She wouldn't know what to do. And this has happened a lot. If there's like a really codependent woman with like an alcoholic or an addict, and they get sober, a lot of times that woman doesn't know what to do. She becomes like spins out, because if we're really this codependent, we are the hope and the healer, we need someone to heal. Because we don't know how to just focus on ourselves. We need a patient. She needs Rick to avoid herself as much as Rick needs power, money, prestige, and all those things to avoid himself. And she enables him to avoid himself. So they're both just like empty and don't even know who they are. She really judged him harshly in this scene too, after the three-way with his brother. And honestly, this woman's a predator too, okay? I know that she is a victim of patriarchy, but she is a predator. His younger brother is in high school, okay? So he is also a predator. He's a groomer. He is he may have been a victim and played by his own predatory stuff, but he has been grooming his brother, and he is a predator. The predator became prey in this scenario. Sorry for a little jarring wardrobe change, but Moses joined us, and he did this while we were playing, so that's what that's about. Freaking nails, man. Yeah, you're a jerk. But I love you. Anyway, did you make it this far? Hi, Mose. I don't know how long people watch these videos. Let me know if you made it to this part. She says like nothing would ever make me get with my brother. And again, like, let me know if you want. I really want to do a video. I know that White Lotus is ending. I really want to do a video on the Radcliffes, but especially this brother and the brother stuff. Oh, he's like, I'm done. Lunch break. Not so fast, Mose, because I can still get you in here. But the brother is predatory. Okay, so just want to get that clear. The brother is predatory, but that's a whole nother subject. But again, she loves hanging out with him because being with him makes her feel like a better person. Okay. Again, back to that original quote that I put. It's like there's something about like people like, and I'm not saying that like she's knowingly doing this. What I'm saying is that these are patterns we get into. This is stuff we repeat from our childhood. This is stuff we repeat from, like, usually you don't just end up this way. Usually it's because maybe you're raised in a family where you had to be some sort of like savior, or you were parentified, and your whole identity is around someone else being like, you being cool, calm, collective, or you being the savior, or you being something and whatever. So I hope it doesn't sound like I'm judging her. I mean, I am, but like, it's only because I know I have been this, and I still can default to this, right? Our ego is very strong. It takes a lot to constantly be aware of like, whoa, what is this really about? And I don't think she's aware of the fact that she gets off on being around dudes who suck and who are openly like awful, because without them, she has nothing to compare it to. So when I say that women are really sick in our patriarchal conditioning, especially when we come from all of the patriarchal violence of men, and women can be abusive too, absolutely. And what I'm trying to say is that we're all like doing this dance. But I do firmly believe that the more women who are like in these cycles of violence and enabling, the more we see it and we're like, whoa, and we don't participate in it, the less powerful it is. It takes, I don't want to say it takes two to tango in terms of like, well, he couldn't do without what he's doing without her. But I am saying that a lot of men's violence is perpetuated, it is continued because of women being an integral part of enabling that system, enabling these men. And we do it, and I believe, again, like I said in the beginning, because I believe it is a survival mechanism we learned under patriarchy, is to how do we survive this, right? And so many women literally had to be with men who were awful, right? And then also, if your dad is awful, this is the person that's supposed to be taking care of you, and one of the people who's supposed to be protecting you, or if it's your mom, whoever it is, and if they are literally the biggest threat to your life, and yet you need them to survive, the mental gymnastics of that means that you are going to, and I say this as somebody who is a survivor, the way that my brain would automatically go for men who were like, I needed to be the exception. I needed to feel special. I needed, like, even though like this creepy old man no one else will talk to, but I'll talk to him because I can see his humanity. I can see how he's just a broken person, and that, he would do better if he could. Like, the way that it gave me a sense of like feeling special and really empathetic, and it's not that I'm not empathetic and that I don't care about people, but this feeds into my sickness and part of my identity, right? That's what it was doing, is like, I didn't want to hurt the feelings of like creepy old men, and because I needed to believe there was something good in them, the same way I needed to believe that the people in my family, men in my family especially, they're only doing this because like I had to see their best parts. Oh, you're gonna join us. I had to see their humanity. I had to see them as a good person, because it is, and everybody is on the spectrum. We're all good and bad, right? But I needed to like cling to their brokenness and needing to see hope in that, because that's how my whole world outlook depended on that, and my own identity depended on that. I know maybe I don't make any sense. Do I make any sense here? Does this make any sense? But I really want women who tend to attract or be attracted to or fall for broken men. This is a sickness in us. We have got to get out of this, because we die, right? I mean, it's working out okay for her, but she almost died more than once because of this dude. This is dangerous. And the less we enable men, and the less we enable their violence and have our entire identity wrapped up in saving them and healing them, what we tap out, they have to change. Now, we can't make them change, but they can't continue to do what they're doing without someone enabling it. And the less women enable it, the more men are going to be lost, and they either evolve or die. But yeah, she doesn't judge. So let's get back to this conversation. He was just like, well, I don't Basically, he didn't. I think he was like really confused why she wouldn't hook up with him, right? Like, he's blaming her for him hooking up with his brother. Like, oh, if you'd only hooked up with me, that wouldn't have happened, kind of thing. And this is just the way she looks at him all the time, like, And again, this is that moral superiority look. And even though like he is awful, I'm just saying. Do y'all see what I'm talking about? And so anyway, she was like, I have a boyfriend, right? Like, I don't do that. And he's my soulmate. Once you're connected with someone on a spiritual level, you can't go back to having schmeg and hooking up, It's a very empty experience. Sorry, I can't read. I don't have my glasses. But it's just kind of like, oh, I'm above hookup because he's my soulmate. Dude, you don't even know this man. Like the way that anyway. And then when he just like talks back, she's like, you're soulless. You're soulless too, though. Your whole identity is on your reflection is in relation to other people. That is what codependency is. I mean, his is in relation to other people. Like they're kind of the same. He's more violent and more harmful, more predatory. But in terms of the root of the problem, it's the same. I'm not saying that they're the same, but I'm saying the root is not even knowing who you are, and because everything is about the approval or the judgment or the comparison. And and again, Mike White totally made this all like Buddhism is, I'm going to misquote this, but it's about comparing yourself to others is like the root, like is makes you miserable. And everybody in this show is miserable because they compare themselves and are empty. Not everybody, but like most of all of the guests. Sad. And again, she's not even happy. Why do I have to worry all the time? You don't, honey. And she's like, well, don't. That's the thing. She judges her. Chelsea thinks that she's better than her. I would say their friendship is basically, again, her being with this woman because she needs to be around people who are doing bad things for her to feel good about herself. And she's like, oh, I believe in love. I have to worry about my little child, this man way older than me who's balding. She's like, don't. It's always about his feelings, his mood, his pain. Like, that's exactly what you want. Because if you actually looked at your own feelings, your own pain, you don't want to. And this is the root of codependent problems, right? When you're codependent, you do everything to avoid yourself the same way that Saxon does. He avoids himself through all of his, but she does this through getting with broken men as a distraction. And I say this as somebody who I realized that when I didn't have someone to worry about, when I didn't have someone to fix, when I didn't have someone, then I was bored, didn't know what to do. She has a lot of pain. She has a lot of feelings, but she's afraid to look at it. And this man, like a drug, is a distraction. I have pain too. Yeah, but if you broke up with that dude and didn't date for a while, you may be able to face it and deal with it, but you don't want to. You get to be a victim of the situation because you have to worry about this child who's a grown-ass man. Yeah, bad things have happened to me. We know. You need to go deal with it. You need therapy too. And all she does is just get rejected, check in on her man who doesn't even care about her. And this is a man who hides from her. They both have that in common. They're not all that different. Anyway, I think I've made my points. He's asleep now. Let me know if you liked this, if you want more White Lotus material, and please follow my Patreon. That's what's paying the bill. This is the French church comment song, random church in the countryside. This is stuff that I do. I don't go to church because I like it. I just think it's pretty. And I take photos like a disco ball. But that's just stained glass pictures. Don't I look pretty? My friend showed me the church and was like, oh, look at that pretty Melanie. Let me take a cute photo of you doing boogie woogie woogie nights in church. Because that's what I do. I don't like church, but I think it's pretty. And Mose couldn't go inside, so he was a mess. Church, comment song. French church, comment song. This is a random comment song. I'm walking up a hill. That's why I'm out of breath. Anyway, Mose. French church, comment song in the countryside with Mose. Join my Patreon if you want to see more travel content. Et voila. Tap, tap, tap. You come in. Bye, bye.